Within White City, not limited to wonderful information, was the comeback of the Gym Leader Castle. This time, however, not only did the castle look more interesting, but each playfield was more intricately customized based on each leader's preferred type. Falconer's Gym was a lofty area perfect for bird Pokémon. Morty's portion of the castle was a spooky, ghostly dungeon-like environment. Clear's arena had teeth on the outside, and each portion of the castle really felt so much cooler than the original Gym Leader Castle of Stadium 1, where it was just the same stinking arena, but with different subtle colors and effects. As usual with the Gym Leader Castle, the gym leaders themselves not only had their preferred types, but other types to counter it with, lest you think all you need is a Machamp to take down Whitney. It also featured a surprise attack where Team Rocket blocks progress within the castle, and a battle ensues. This also hinted at an actual little story that was being told to all stadium-like fights. And I have to be honest and say that's a very good thing. The characters you battle actually reply back and use some phrases, as opposed to the old game where it was very robotic and lifeless. The Elite Four returned, and their arena also looked great. It was a terrace, much like the first stadiums, but each successive victory got you visibly higher up the castle, until it became nighttime and a giant Charizard statue proclaimed your fight with Lance. But what's this? Once you beat that, the Kanto Gym Leader Castle is unlocked. Just like the Game Boy games, this is 2 games in 1, and 8 new stages are revealed, with the good old but simple areas seen in the original Stadium game. Unlike Stadium 1, 2 had a suspend and continue option to enable you to actually save progress in battle and continue some other time. You know how the Gym Leader Castle never has the Gym Leader first but a grunt to fight before that? How nice of it to do so! Stadium 1 was brutal and never gave you that realistic and acceptable feature. In White City and making a comeback was of course Professor Oak's Stadium Lab, improving what we loved in his Stadium 1 lab. All the old things were back, such as the trading machine, Pokédex, and item and Pokémon storage. The Pokédex was not only improved, but looked so much nicer. It had a categorizing feature, which gave you a fun chance to look at that silly animation and find Pokémon easily. And look at that! You could actually zoom in on a Pokémon and rotate it around. Something the old stadium never allowed. The PC, which was the storage unit for Pokémon and items, was really useful and quite realistic because just like Stadium 1, it allowed storing Pokémon and items for your Game Boy Game Pack onto the N64 cartridge. I still can't get over that. It's such a cool thing. I can store a Pokémon from one game and then retrieve it with another. Same goes with items. And it even looks like a PC interface. You could also categorize, group, and organize Pokémon in your boxes, party, or the N64 Stadium cartridge. Check their stats, make them hold items, move them around. The only thing missing is a comparison chart. So anyway, we stored all kinds of Pokémon in the N64 cartridge, to be given for anyone who needs them. Because we're nice guys. Look, even a red Gyarados was up for grabs. Check out all those retarded nicknames. Huh. Okay, I could keep talking about how cool the PC is in Stadium 2 because of how practical it was compared to the Game Boy game, and how it bridged the transferring of Pokémon and items with other game cartridges, resulting in exciting customization and interactivity. But I won't. Okay, moving on. The Stadium was of course the main feature. Duh. It was the primary place to fight and do all kinds of nifty fighty things in it too. Just like Stadium 1 before it, this stadium had Little Cup, Poké Cup, and Prime Cup. We all know Prime Cup and how its unlimited free-for-all merciless nature rocks and how its arena map looks awful, and of course the Poké Cup, which was the primary playing field of the game, and how it had a limitation of level 50 Pokémon. It was all redesigned too, but Prime Cup still looks awful. The Poké Cup looked like a more modern version of the Poké Cup in the original stadium, but it would have been nice to get the old Poké Cup back. The redesign wasn't awful, but it started the trend of slowly modernizing the arenas in the game, so when future arenas came out, they turned more and more abstract and less stadium-like, and focused on more unrelatable, fantastical areas, which simply don't feel as down-to-earth as the normal-looking stadiums full of cheering crowds. Sorry, sidetrack. Each stadium had 4 stages: Pokeball, Great Ball, Ultra Ball, and Master Ball. Just like the first game. The Pika Cup and Petite Cup of the first game were squished together to just one, called the Little Cup, which was a good idea considering the 2 cups were almost identical. All the Pokemon in the Little Cup have to be at the compact level of 5, and I'll admit it's fun seeing how 1 HP makes such a big difference for those Pokemon at small levels. All of them had to be unevolved Pokemon too. Aw, cute, isn't it? The biggest stadium was reserved not for the Poke Cup, but for a new feature called the Challenge Cup. The idea behind the Challenge Cup, given the fact that there are like 100 little playing fields in one giant arena, is that this stadium gives you a pre-selected group of Pokemon, and you have to use them to defeat your opponents with them. Cool idea. But why was this meant to look like the primary stage of the game? You know, it's huge. The arena definitely looked cool, even though the other fields in the distance never seemed to have other Pokemon fighting each other. Quite challenging. Oh, the puns. And now, the mini-games. Remember how fun the games were in the old one? Yes, they were. Wanna bet these are just as fun and more so? Yes. Not only is there a minigame gallery of such classics like Rampage Rollout, Tumbling Togepi, Furret's Frolic, Eager Eevee. Well, come to think of it, Stadium 1 games had more energy to them. The ones in 2 were more brain teasers than hitting the controller as fast as you can. Pichu's power plant was a more difficult rehash of the power plant of the minigames in Stadium 1. And Tumbling Togepi felt a lot like Run Rattata Run. Regardless, they were still really fun, and it was also possible, if you had a Game Boy game pack inserted, to have your own Pokemon from your own game participated in a few of the minigames. Now that's cool! And not only that, but you could have Pokemon not specifically playable in some minigames included from your Game Boy. Like in Clear Cut Challenge, where if you had no Game Boy game pack, you'd only have Scyther and Pinsir available to play. And that's what all the computers would have, too. But if you had a Scizor in your Game Boy game, you'd be able to get him in there! Come on, cut that thing! Aw, little chubby claws. Oh, and Ammonite would swindle its way into Tumbling Togepi. That's so random and awesome! That was great. So was the Girafarig on Furret's Frolic, a game where you'd get these giant Pokeballs to try to headbutt them into your own goal to score points. Master Balls were huge. And who didn't like Delibird Delivery with that Pikachu N64? Hey, I have that! Also, there's a tournament for the minigames much like the one in Stadium 1, though this time they actually made use of everything and gave it an interesting method of play. And it gave you coins, in which it would actually give them to you in the Game Boy game if you had the coin case. Finally! People using the Game Boy's interactivity to some purpose! So great! The minigame section also had a quiz. As if Earl's Pokemon Academy wasn't enough, you'd get quizzed here too. Look at Mary, she's such an annoying little... You'd be able to out-quiz your friends with this quizzing. The thing had a championship too. Gotta love these minigames. Better organized. And now, finally, we enter what I obviously think is the main event for Pokemon Stadium. The free battle. It's the ultimate place where you... I said this in the last Stadium review. However, this is so much better because this had options, customization. You could actually change rules, combine players, have a giant 4-player rumble using your absolute best Pokemon, and truly test your skills against opponents from around the world. That is, as long as they were a few feet away from you. 2 cool trainers are statically standing there blinking, and are on the menu as you could pick rules and team combinations and even customize the rules. Talk about a first! In the Stadium 2 game, it was possible to make up your own rules for the free battle and give them amusing names. Pokemon Battle Party tournaments were a definite must. You could be the Stadium Dungeon Master, and they could be your contestants. Hope some of you did that. We did, for we saw it was good. What is the single best thing that happened in Stadium 2? The free battle, the ultimate Pokemon arena in the Stadium game, finally, had a stage selection! You could select any stage map from the Stadium 2 game. Praise be the Pokegons! And with that, the ultimate battles commence, and Pokemon history was made. Fight! There was also a nice little Pokemon Park level for the free battle. Ah, very relaxing. Like that map. Then there was also the event battle, which required 2 game packs to be on at once to fight event battles, which, you know, who cares? The free battle did this better. Despite the event battle having a feature for a time limit, it just was really clunky and we hardly ever got it working because we didn't match with the rules. Yeah, great event battle. Now, of course, when Pokemon Stadium 2 was completed, all that is left for you is to get challenged by your rival in his evil lair. The rival is, in fact, question mark, from the Gold Silver games. And instead of Mewtwo, being the final boss of Stadium 1, it's this guy, with a bunch of super strong Pokemon, which includes Mewtwo. Beating him, of course, unlocks round 2, and makes everything harder. And it's all at not night, but dusk. And is it me, but does Stadium 2 bend the rules? These battles are the hardest to master. This game was really useful to us as kids, not only for its Pokemon Battle Royale, but also because we made our own Pokemon live-action series, and used it for the Pokemon effects. The problem with that was, of course, the HUD. Too bad you couldn't take those off. And with that, Stadium 2 brought out the best in Stadium 1 and thoroughly improved on it. In fact, I'll have to say, Stadium 2 is the ultimate companion piece to the first 2 generation Pokemon games. And with its compatibility and interactivity with the Game Boy games, I think, makes it the most important secondary game to the Pokemon series. Pokemon Stadium 2 really is the ultimate 3D arena, and more than that. It allowed fantastic battles between friends on a big screen in full color, and also could become a resource base, Pokemon daycare, and educational asset for the Game Boy games. Pokemon Stadium 2 was, and is, Groovitude at its finest.